breaking news as it relates to the conflict in the Middle East. Take a good look at your screen. Israeli troops raiding the offices of the satellite news network Al Jazeera in the Israeli-occupied West Bank early Sunday, ordering the bureau to shut down amid a widening campaign by Israel targeting the Qatar-funded broadcaster as they cover the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. Al Jazeera aired footage of Israeli troops live on its Arabic language channel, ordering the office to be shut for 45 days. It allows an order issued in May that saw Israeli police raid Al Jazeera's broadcast position in East Jerusalem, seizing equipment there, preventing its broadcasts in Israel, and blocking its websites. Joining us live this morning to further discuss this breaking news alert is Jonathan Ruhi, Director of Foreign Policy at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America. Jonathan, good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
So a lot of conflict surrounding this breaking news alert this Sunday morning. If we look back in May, we know there was some conflict with Israel and Al Jazeera where they were shut down briefly, as well as they were trying to get footage of the Israel-Hamas war. Also learning the same thing happening this Sunday morning. Could you catch us up? What is leading us to this news alert?
Yeah, so even though I don't know particularly the specific details of what led to this particular event, I think it's sort of a microcosm of two larger trends and important things that people should be aware of. One is that, as you mentioned at the outset, Al Jazeera is an official organ of the Qatari government. And certainly there's Al Jazeera English, which is somewhat watered down and toned down for Western audiences. But that's very different even than what Al Jazeera broadcasts in the Middle East, which various studies from all sorts of groups have found is a direct contributor to radicalization, both anti-Western and specifically anti-Israel, and reflects a larger issue where Qatar, on the one hand, poses as a strong and reliable U.S. ally in the region, providing access to our Air Force at their base at Al Udeid, and doing various other things like convening Israel-Hamas negotiations. But with the other hand, it does things that are very incendiary, and only contribute to and worsen a lot of the instability we've seen around the region well before October 7th. The second thing I would say is the West Bank is often overlooked in the framework of this larger multi-front war from Iran and its proxies around the region. Certainly, we all know about the West Bank from Israel-Palestinian diplomacy and issues of a two-state solution. But increasingly, and you'll hear this from everyone all around the Middle East, is as Iran prepares to face the loss of its proxy Hamas in Gaza, they're looking to shift their focus to use the West Bank as another front for destabilizing Israel, draining its resources, and forcing it to go in and do a lot of nitty-gritty, unpleasant things that can then be broadcast to the wider world to delegitimize Israel.
Jonathan, great points you're making this morning. And another aspect, and I've seen other world leaders do this in a time of conflict, is they kind of want to make sure that the information that's being relayed to the general public is in their scope accurate. And I know this is sometimes, it can be seen from both sides, but I know this is sometimes what we saw out in China when there was conflict out in that area. You know, they want to make sure that information that's being given is at least agreed upon by that particular world leader. But on the flip side, for some, it can be seen as, okay, well, you're trying to hide something. What is the best way in your expertise of making sure information is accurate that's being given by media partners in that area, but also that you're not censoring those freedom of speech rights?
Certainly, yeah, it's a very important question. One thing that we've certainly seen with a lot of recent conflicts in the Middle East involving either Israeli forces or our own American forces is a growing adeptness on the part of our adversaries to use media, to exploit media and social media as a channel for disinformation, to basically portray whatever we're doing as ipso facto proof of violations of international law, and doing all sorts of things that run counter to basic ideas like freedom of speech. It's a very thorny issue. I think on balance, a lot of the tendency of the world watching media and social media is to react first and think later, which I think is certainly a problem that has to be dealt with. It begins with using good information to fight bad information, and doing so in a free and open forum, using media what it's intended for, which is free expression. And I think that's something where even where the United States and Israel and our other partners often do the right thing, they fail to explain themselves adequately and in a timely fashion in these forums.
And Jonathan, let's not forget, you have these terroristic organizations such as Hamas and Hezbollah that do these media briefings pretty much every other day where they were spewing hatred and false narratives. So that also relates to the importance of having media partners that could be quote unquote unbiased, if you want to call them that, in that area who can show both sides of the conflict.
Certainly, I couldn't agree more. And everyone, with good reason, when they think of Hamas or many of these other terrorist groups, they'll think of October 7th, the horrible things that were done, which certainly deserve to have light shown on them in their own right. But as we've seen since October 7th, and this is merely the latest instance of it, these groups are indeed very good at exploiting disinformation. And they're often, way ahead of the United States, Israel, and others in the news cycle. And as we've seen, whether it's campuses on elite universities here in the East Coast or whether it's protests around Europe and the Middle East, it has very real tangible effects that, again, frankly, we're just behind the eight ball and trying to keep up with it and counteract it using freedom of speech.
Jonathan, I do briefly want to get to these ongoing conflicts. As you mentioned, Israel and Hamas, Israel and Hezbollah, Iran, those Yemen Houthi rebels who have been doing those explosions out there in the Red Sea. With all of these moving parts, all of these conflicts, the question also looming this morning, is a ceasefire realistic?
So I'm certainly guilty of being skeptical of the possibility of a ceasefire in Gaza because Hamas will not take yes for an answer. They clearly are making the cold-headed calculation that all they have to do is wait out Israel and behind Israel, the United States in these talks. So eventually they can walk out on top of the rubble they've created and claim victory, which for them will actually be no small thing. It would be a victory for them after all that's gone on and all they did on October 7th. There's also interrelated ceasefire negotiations in Israel's north along the blue line that separates it from Lebanon. I think a ceasefire is certainly more possible there, even though it may not be likely, because currently from the United States, while it's pursuing the right goal, which is at least a temporary end to hostilities there, it's doing so the wrong way, which is by calling on all sides to step down when really they should be calling on Hezbollah to stop what they started unprovoked on the day after October 7th, which was opening a second front against Israel. So I think what you're seeing Israel do now is message that their increased tempo of strikes on Hezbollah is meant to convince Hezbollah that there are two options, is to continue facing those military costs from Israel or take the diplomatic route out, which that's a very recent development.
Jonathan Ruhi, a pleasure speaking with you this morning on this breaking news alert. We appreciate your expertise on the topic. Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go? We know this past week has been very busy, to say the least, as it relates to Israel and Hezbollah, those exploding pagers for one.
Certainly, yeah, and that's exactly, I think, the main takeaway that everyone who's interested in this topic should look to in the coming days and weeks, which is the potential for escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. The exploding pagers, the airstrike in Beirut that took out a top Hezbollah commander, who, by the way, was responsible for a lot of American deaths in the Middle East in decades past. Currently, these are Israel's efforts, again, as I mentioned, to try to force Hezbollah to stop what Hezbollah started months ago and buy space and time for Israel to repopulate its north, where even the Secretary Blinken has said Israel has effectively lost sovereignty. But I would point to the larger potential looming behind that, which will not necessarily be solved at all by a ceasefire, which is the larger threat from Hezbollah that's become very acute since October 8th. And that's its ability to rain down 100,000 plus heavy rockets and missiles, start a large conflict with Israel that would dwarf anything that we've actually seen so far in the Middle East. And that could spiral out of the current tensions. But even if it doesn't, I would warn everyone that that risk certainly has not gone away.
Jonathan Ruhi, again, a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.